Oh, hello, Nicholas. You
Hello
caught
there.
me mending my fences. That is an old. I love when Will Ferrell did George W. Bush. It was just fucking hysterical, and what what a time when we look back. We already now we look back and go, hey, he wasn't so bad. He wasn't so bad. But Will Ferrell's rendition of him is great. It's this one sketch where he's like, oh, he's like, there's a fence behind him. He's got a little pickaxe. He's like, oh, hello, America. You caught me mending my fences. Hey, Connie, go deep. Yeah, it's just fucking hysterical. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, listeners of all ages, Geeks Worldwide Radio and the Dork Shared Gooniverse proudly presents to you the greatest podcasting team in the world. He's the Fry Guy, Nick Friar. I'm your friendly neighborhood backcracker, Dr. Joe. Together we are the greatest podcasting team. Though I said that already. The TLDR Comic Book Club, baby. Nicholas, how's it going?
It makes sense that you went and did that twice, Joe, because our listeners have gotten an overload of us over the past week. Because not only did you get What's New, which usually means you get an interview, you got a second interview, at least if you are a hoop head like our new friend Kyle Starks is. Holy shit, that man has a lot of basketball opinions, and I absolutely loved all of it. It was that was a fun time.
Well, except for the Marcus Smart opinion.
It was.
We're done with Marcus. We're done with Marcus. Adios.
We have moved on for Marcus. You will always have a place in my heart. But at least I'll give Kyle this. He did Derek White. He's right about that 100%. Like Derek White,
100%.
You didn't need to keep Marcus Smart. But yes, that was a fun time. But more importantly, all the comics chatter that we had with him was a lot of fun. Pine and Merrimack, I'm telling you guys, the FOC has come and gone. We did let you guys know in the course of at least at the start of the original interview when I added a couple of inserts. But the FOC has come and gone. But if you didn't put it on your pull list ahead of the first issue coming out, when you see it on the racks at your local comic shop, pick it up. Don't hesitate. Joe and I absolutely love this. Some fun characters, a promising start from a plot standpoint too. But I am all about Pine and Merrimack, and had some great conversation with Kyle about some of his other works, and got a little insight, about what's to come for him possibly in the future too.
Yeah, and the art too. It's beautiful art by Frank Palin. Gorgeous art. And I kept calling it Merrimack and Pine. And I don't know why it's Pine and Merrimack. I grew up, fun fact, in Amesbury. I grew up on Merrimack Street, right? And so maybe that's why I just had sort of Merrimack on the front of my mind. But I realized, because I kept seeing it, I go, wait, I'm not the one. Wait, they're not the ones making the fucking mistakes here. Let me make. Oh fuck! All right, Joseph, you gotta strike that, reverse it. But it was a great talk, and that's the longest we have ever chatted with someone where they weren't like desperately running to try and get away from us by the end of 45 minutes. But like that was a 2-hour conversation we had,
which we had to cut it off.
Yeah, and it was fun as hell, but. We don't want this episode, this issue, this trade. This is trade 9, which means 90 mainline issues, folks.
Yeah,
and we've got a whopper in store. So, Nicholas, why don't you plug everything?
Yeah, I was gonna say I gotta plug a few things because
you do.
We'll probably have a 2-hour conversation with a guy, and he's not rushing to get off the call with us. I'm sure we're gonna have Kyle on again at some point down the line. He's got a lot of awesome work coming out now, and I can't wait to see what he has coming forward. But again, always make sure you're subscribing to our audio channels. If you're finding us on Twitter, YouTube, or on Doc's Twitch page, which, again, if you listen to us in audio form only, you can go and look at our ugly mugs over on those platforms as well if you want to watch us try and ramble on through these conversations. If you only watch us on those platforms, make sure you subscribe to the audio channels as well. So we're talking Apple, Spotify, Geeks Worldwide Radio, SoundCloud, Pocket Cast, Amazon, all the major platforms. You can find us there. Make sure you subscribe there, because that's the only place you're going to get our Friar side chat. So that's when we talk to Kyle Starks most recently. We had Axel Alonso on very recently as well. And then who knows? More stuff can pop up. Joe and I will say, like, oh, we haven't had anybody on in a while. And then who knows? We can go and rip off like 3 conversations in a row, and we had no fucking idea how it happened. And we're coming out the other end of it like, what the fuck is going on? We haven't done a mainline issue in forever, but we do have one today. So for those who are new to the program, we are doing a trade, which means that Joe and I will both be talking about a new book for you guys to hear about if you haven't read it before. And I haven't read the book that Joe's talking about, and vice versa, per usual on Mainline. However, after we do our new books, we are each going to circle back and talk about a book that the other has recommended to us, to each other before. So I am going to try and guess what Joe is talking about today, but it can be any of the previous 89 books that I have recommended to Joe previously, and obviously the same for me on the other end of this.
I fucking dug deep too. I dug deep.
I
went into the bowels of TLDR to find this book.
Interesting. That makes me feel less good about my picks, quite honestly, because the way you talked about it originally, I had I'll explain my logic when we get there, but why don't we actually didn't have anything between the two of us that we oh no, you did catch up on some stuff. What have you been catching up on?
A couple things real quick. So the latest issue of Transformers by Daniel Warren Johnson. We talked about just how much like we've been enjoying the series so far, and how it's really made us sort of appreciate Transformers. This was a fucking excellent issue. Absolutely excellent. This one ripped at every level. Action, emotional, great pacing, great art, everything about it. Absolutely excellent. So
I didn't get to read it because I had a lot of holiday stuff this weekend. I'm so pissed.
You get and read it and go back and pick it up. Have your comic book shop order it if you need to. Transformers by Daniel Warren Johnson. Excellent. And then this may or may not, tease something to come, but I've been catching up on Cy Spurrier's Hellblazer. I read the first volume.
First volume. We've already heard that he's coming back too with Aaron Campbell, and I'm very, very excited for that.
And so what I love about it is I love the storytelling. Each issue, I believe, not every issue, but there's a couple different artists, at least in the first volume. So some of it is really good, and some of it was not my cup of tea. But I didn't let that take me out of Cy's storytelling here. And I love how sort of each issue in the first volume is, there is a two-parter in there, but like I love how they're kind of individualistic, but they're also tied together at the same time. So more on that later. But
you like the grittier art style for Hellblazer.
I did because that fits Cy's storytelling.
Yeah. And that's what we're getting in his return to the title too. Because I believe it's Aaron Campbell, who I don't know if he did. I believe he did the majority of that that run. So very exciting stuff there. And again, that's not a book that I specifically talked about on here. We've talked about it before. Like, should we revisit characters for specific arcs? But we have so much stuff to cover that kind of doesn't really happen. But the one I talked about a long time ago was by the late Cy Spencer, City of Demons, which obviously we've heard about that story a few times. And you've read that. I love that one. But I love the way Cy writes Constantine. I can't wait to see more of his work, which is going to be starting in January as well. But without further ado, because again, I didn't catch up. I've been reading, other stuff that was more relevant to the show today, later on in the program. What do we got for the what's new this week, Joe? Starting with the trades.
Okay, so I didn't dive too deep into the trades because I know we have a lot to get to.
Sure.
But we have a couple of things. We have the Daredevil Epic Collection Last Rites. And I don't think this is out this week, but it should be out very soon. Chip Zdarsky's entire run of Spider-Man at Marvel is being released on hardcover. So that's going to be a collector piece for everyone and anybody. That's so keep your peepers popped for that. From IDW, we have My Little Pony Best of 40th Anniversary Special.
Oh, good for you, Mac.
And then and swags. And then from the Dark Horse, we have Macbeth: A Tale of Horror. The Many Deaths of Barnaby James and Creepy Archives Volume 4. So a little bit of everything there, for the bronies and the horror freaks out there,
Yep.
Got those. But let's dive into the good stuff because as per usual, Marvel has got like 1,000 books out this week. So starting with Marvel, the week of 13 New Comic Book Day. We have Moon Knight issue 30, Miles Morales Spider-Man issue 13. We have X-Men Red 18, The Immortal Thor issue 5, Guardians of the Galaxy issue 9, Dark X-Men issue 5, Star Wars Bounty Hunters issue 41, Captain America issue 4, Blade issue 6, Daredevil Gang War issue 1. which is not written by Ahmad Salad, different writer. But this one I definitely want to check out because I am fully ensconced in all things Daredevil. We have Punisher 2, Marvel Zombies, Black, White, and Blood, issue 3. A book I am reading, just didn't get a chance to read it yet this week, is Luke Cage Gang War, issue 2, written by Rodney Barnes. We have
Dibs not even fucking reading it. That's cool. That's not
fucked up. Yeah. I might wait like an entire year before I pick up the second issue just to fucking spite you. We have Spider-Gwen.
I'm gonna write you out to Rodney if you do that. I'll tell you that right now.
Oh, I wouldn't do that to my boy Rodney. We have Spider-Gwen Smash issue 1, or I'll just read them and not tell you. Star Wars: The High Republic, Shadows of Starlight issue 3, White Widow 2, Silver Surfer Rebirth Legacy 4.
Okay, from DC, we got Detective Comics 1079, which, Joe, I know you've been loving what Ron B's been doing. Yes. And Jason Sean Alexander, too, and what a tandem. Then we got Action Comics 1079, Batman and Robin issue 4, Green Lantern 6, World's Finest Teen Titans issue 6, Batman Gargoyle of Gotham issue 2, Superman Lost issue 9, Batman City of Madness issue 2, which I have not checked out yet, but everything that I've seen visually from this thing looks insane. I got to give this one a look. Danger Street issue 12, Titans Beast World issue 12, Wesley Dodge The Sandman issue 3, Batman Santa Claus Silent Night issue 2, Outsiders issue 2, Titans Beast World Tour Gotham issue 1, Speed Force 2, Batman Faux Simile edition 428. Oh, that's the is that Jason Todd? Is that right? Anyways, and then we got Twas the Might Before Christmas issue 1, Waller versus Wildstorm issue 4, Bird of Prey Uncovered issue 1, and then Batman and the Joker Deadly Duo Unplugged issue 1.
All right. So, yeah. So this is where things get really, really interesting because there's a lot of really great books that dropped from Image this week. And I'm bummed out that I didn't get to read two of them. One very in particular I didn't get to read, but you did. And we'll touch on that in a second. So we have Radiant Black 27. I wrote down A and B, but it's really Radiant Black 27 and 27 and a half. So this is part of the Catalyst War, and they were trying to do something very unique here, where you've got stories being told from Marshall's perspective, and then the same story but from Nathan's perspective. And I was under the initial impression, right, that you could read one or the other, and that when they came together, like then it would sort of go from there. Yeah. But these issues have been a little few and far between, and I wasn't really quite clear with how to read this one, because usually it was pretty obvious. You pick this cover, the A cover, and you get Nathan's story. You pick the B cover, you get Marshall's story, and vice versa, whatever. And this one, I was like, I can't fucking tell.
Right.
Because they both look the same. And so I came to the realization, because I know we had planned, you were going to read one, I was going to read the other, and then we talk about like how they came together. And I don't think it's going to work. I got to go back. You got to read both.
I agree.
Right. And right. The idea, the premise of it is just so fantastic, but you really do have to read both. So I'm going to so I didn't read this one because when I came to that realization, I was like, I got to go back and read the last, it's either 2 or 3 issues, of the ones I didn't read, so that I wanted this to make absolute sense. Yeah. Because I feel like if you don't, it might not. So
we're in agreement on this. Yep. 100%.
Yep. The Scorched issue 24. Phantom Road. This is another one I wanted. Phantom Road issue 7. This is, of course, Jeff Lemire and Gabriel Walta. The second arc is picking back up, or it's already. We're already in the second arc here. The Enfield Gang Massacre issue 5. This continues to be an excellent prequel to That Texas Blood. You had asked me off air, do you need to have read That Texas Blood in order for this to make sense? No.
Okay.
Right? So you can read this as, if you're new to That Texas Blood, or you haven't read it yet, this is a great primer for that. It takes place, it's Chris Condon and Sean Phillips, or is it Jacob Phillips? There's so many fucking Jacob Phillips. Thank you.
Just the two Phillips. You got 50-50 chance.
Well, there's Stephanie Phillips too, right? So
that's true. Yeah,
there's a good chance you say Phillips and I'm going to say the wrong one. I don't mean to. I apologize, Jacob Phillips. But again, I didn't want to get sent to the fucking gulag that is the rumpus room.
There is no spoon, as AWA has told me.
But we have 3 books from AWA that we want to touch on. Nicholas, why don't you kick us off here?
Yeah, Rogue Sun, issue 17. Of course, Ryan Parrott, Abel, and Marco Reyna was on this issue as well. There is so much action in this issue, and we kind of were led to believe that was going to happen after the events of issue 16, and that was very cool. Like Abel and Marco Reyna really had a chance to go off, had a fun time with all of that. But for me, it's funny, like how, we both know this about ourselves. Like we want the action, we enjoy the action, and those are some of the images that are really going to stick with us. But what we end up talking about more is the writing, how the story's told through the art. And this is a huge issue for Marcus. And that is how I will remember issue 17. And it is like, as I'm talking about it, I'm getting that feeling again that when I read this, it's like, wow, I never thought of like that I was going to feel like I would think the way I do now about Marcus throughout this entirety of the story. Things had kind of shifted as the family dynamic evolved a little bit more. So it was like there was an opening up of maybe I can attach myself to this character a little bit more. But after this issue, man, I'm blown away. I am blown away by the development of this character this far into the story, like 17 chapters in. And we now, before it's like, oh, he's just kind of a dink, and I get it. And it's just the way he is and whatever. But now we've gotten to know him a lot more. We've gotten to learn about how he was raised and why he is the way he is. And this issue gives us a lot more insight into his thought process because we get narration from him here. Crazy. So this was a Marcus heavy issue, and I very, very much enjoyed that.
God damn, this is the one book that I really wanted to read this week, and I just ran out of time today to get to it. So I will this will definitely be the first thing I read either tonight or as soon as I can, because I fucking love this book.
Yeah.
Plain and simple. Like, I love Radiant Black. I love Dead Lucky. I fucking love. I mean, I love all these books. This one is hands down my favorite. And the last several issues, especially the last 2, have just given us so much. And we know where this is, or we think we know where this is going, but it's just building and building and building. And I just fucking love everything about
this. This is my like when the week that this comes out every month, this is the first book I read every time.
Yeah,
100%.
Yeah,
no, not even a hesitation.
Yeah, it generally is for me too, but there was a lot. Getting ready for a trade is a lot.
So. Oh yeah. You kidding? We got so much to get to. Which you got a couple titles that you wanted to dig into. Where do you want to go on these from Image?
Yeah, so I'm going to start with A Haunted Girl, issue 3, and I've talked about this. I've talked about this, each week or each month that it's come out, and just Ethan Sachs, Naomi Sachs, right, his father-daughter, tandem writing this, and of all 3 issues, and I think it's concluding with the 4th issue. I think it's at least this first arc is just gonna be 4 issues. There's been a lot of character building, in the first 2 issues, right? You were really getting, just this emotional, like heavy emotional stuff in these first 2 issues, and this one is just really takes the story to the next level. This one was a lot of I wouldn't say world building, but we got a lot of okay, these are the stakes. This is what's real. This is what's going on. This is at the heart of what's going on right now. And we get some further insight as to, why our main character is, why the way she is some things that are, beyond her control. And like I said, storytelling wise, really just takes it to the next level here. So this has been an absolutely, excellent series. Some real stakes, were on the line in this issue, which was excellent.
This has been a nice surprise.
Yeah, it really has. It really has. And again, like I know we've got certain rules for our upcoming annual, so I don't know if it'll qualify for potential best new series because there might not be, it definitely won't because the last issue won't come out until January, but we do have a category for best surprise of the
Yeah.
year, right?
Yeah, that's true.
And potentially this one could fit there.
Yeah,
Um
this is one of this. I don't know your other candidates. I got like off the top of my head, but this would not surprise me at all if this is your pick in the end.
Yeah, this is like there's a couple of books that I like read. Go, oh shit, like wow.
Mm,
But this one's been fantastic.
yeah.
But then a book that I'm telling you right now, Nicholas, I'm calling dibs on right now. Dibs,
Okay.
dibs, dibs, dib, dib,
All right.
dibby dibs. Even Sean Phillips likes it when I call dibs on your ass. And that is Bloody Dozen, issue 1 from Image Comics. It was written by Charles Soule and art by Raphael Albuquerque. This is one that I made a decision: read this or Rogue Sun before the show. It's a number 1. I want to read it so I could talk about it. And within the first 3 pages, I said, "Yep, this is a dibs book."
Nice.
This has got some. Again, I wouldn't call it horror elements, but there's some fucked up shit that's going on early on. You've got some magic, vampires. You've got some sci-fi elephants. Jesus, elements to it. But Albuquerque's art is tremendous. Soul storytelling. I mean, this is exactly, we talk about this all the time. This book achieves what a number 1 should do. It's paced well. It's drawn well. It's written well. It doesn't, like we always talk about hooks. Like you, by the end, it had its hooks into me within the first 3 pages. Like as soon as I knew it was dibs, it had me. So Bloody Dozen, issue 1. Make sure if you're running out your local comic book shop, grab it.
Mhm.
And if you're listening to this, and it's not, and the new comic book day has already passed, go back, look for it, ask your local comic book shop to get it for you. You're absolutely going to want to read it. It's fantastic.
Nice. I'm just here for the elephants. I'm really excited about those, but I gotta wait, I guess, for a while. Let's move on though. Let's go to Boom. We got a few titles here that you and I are both reading. You, of course, are reading House of Slaughter issue 20, and then we got Damn Them All issue 11. There's also Zawa and the Belly of the Beast issue 2, and then Under Heist issue 1. You did not check this out because Boom issue 1.
I know. I
Yeah,
plan to. Just
yeah,
there's only.
yeah, yeah.
I'm over 800 books on the year though, Nicholas.
Yeah, good on you. I was
Yep.
thinking about I thought about this crossed my mind too, but there was a couple other number ones that were higher priority for me in the end, and we'll get to those in a second. Well, actually, why
Mhm.
don't you take us through Dark Horse?
Yeah, Dark Horse. Jesus Christ, I can read. We have Star Wars Hyperspace Stories issue 12, from the world of
I
minor
just thought
threats.
of the wait, time out. I just thought of the I think it's Tommy Boy, where David Spade's character Richard says to Chris Farley, it's called reading, top to bottom, left to right. Put a bunch of words together and they form a sentence. He's so he's so fucking
It's
good.
covered in a thin candy shell. Your
You're
brain's covered in a thin candy shell.
shut up,
Uh,
Richard.
Ketchup packet. Star
Richard,
Wars.
who's your favorite little rascal? Alfalfa or is it Spanky?
Who's your
It's
favorite
in there.
baseball team? The Yankees. Speaking of which, fuck the Yankees because they're going to sign Yamamoto, and it's really going to drive me
Oh,
nuts.
yeah.
There's our sports talk for Ryan.
Ridiculous. Yeah.
Love you, brother. Star Wars Hyperspace Stories issue 12, from the world of minor threats, the alternates issue 4, Space Usagi, Death and Honor. This is, I might have gotten pushed back because I feel like I definitely read this a few weeks ago. Excellent.
Hmm.
Operation Sunshine issue 3, Quick Stops Volume 2 issue 1, and The Assassin's Apprentice 2 issue 1. And then you've got a book, Nicholas, you'd like to discuss.
Yeah, there was another number one on the out from Dark Horse this week, and that's Masterpiece issue 1. This is written by Brian Michael Bendis and drawn by Alex Maleev, edited by friend of the show Daniel Shaban. And I don't know at what point I called dibs in this, but it definitely I didn't wait till the end. That's for damn sure. We meet this character Emma, and I love the introduction. Her, she's a 16-year-old kid, and she feels all too real because she's this new kid at a school and the teacher's asking her to introduce herself and get and tell everybody about herself and whatnot. And I've never been in that situation, but every time I talk to somebody who has been in that situation, they always have this like internal monologue of, really? You're going to make me fucking do this? I got nothing to fucking say. I'm boring. I'm not interesting. I don't want to get like, you're all going to judge me, whatever. And you have that internal monologue, but people just, they don't say that kind of stuff because you don't say that as a human being. Like, you're just like, I'm just going to put it on the face and figure out how to get fucking through this. That is not how Emma operates. She's just like, I don't want to do this. Like, and just so you know, before you all judge me, like, remember that I said, I don't want to do this. So I love that about this character, how she's real. She's obviously smart. And then we find out like she's actually very, very fucking smart. So the premise for this is outstanding. She's this smart 16-year-old kid who's like in like created like inventions, but also has like a web comic series, which is kind of cool. We see a little bit of that art in here as well, which is kind of fun. And it definitely, it's like that art is obviously a major step down than the normal art that we get. But still, it's like, it's pretty good. But we find out like her parents were like a big fucking deal in like the thief community. They've pulled off some big heists, like 5 of the biggest ever or something to that effect. And now like one of the guys that's robbed, like that they robbed, has found Emma. So that's going to turn into a whole thing. The parents are not in the mix, though. We don't know where the parents are. And then as if that wasn't all enough, you get an interesting character introduction, a promising premise in general. Then we get to the end of the issue, and there's another player who gets added to the mix, and they're like, whoa, like they make their presence very well known. This first issue was a whole fucking meal. I am very excited to talk about this at length at some point down the line because I have very high expectations for this title coming off the first issue.
I'm glad you called dibs on it too, so I didn't have to say bad things about Brian Michael Bendis.
Yeah, don't fuck with Superman or Batman, otherwise you're gonna hear about it from Joe. That's for damn sure.
Also, getting back to Sports Minute, another player the Red Sox didn't sign because they fucking stink. Young Hoo Lee signed with the San Francisco Giants. Just a nice little bat that Sox probably could have used in their outfield. That fucking stinks.
No, I got Tyler O'Neill. They're fine.
Yeah, Jesus Christ.
Such an odd signing.
We're gonna get many of those. Nick and I have been discussing this with our good best friend, Corey.
Yep.
About we're gonna hear a lot of, well, we were in on that guy.
I
right?
mean,
and the inevitable. Oh well, a healthy Chris Sale is gonna be like making a major move.
If they do that, I'm actually gonna I might lose it a little bit on Twitter. Like I think I'm gonna have to, like, on my sports account, like my work account. It's absolutely asinine if you go and make that claim. Like I've told you about like when I ripped them for the Mookie Betts deal back when I was like covering them, like when that fucking happened. And I won't have. I got no patience for like a bunch of bullshit. Like it's I get it if you're like you want to go in a different direction and all this different stuff, but when you start feeding lies, I have no time for that.
They can't even sign Seth Lugo, and he's a
for real
bum. He's a bum. He went to fucking Kansas City.
Yeah. How do you lose out on a guy to the Royals? Like outside of their, what was it, 2015 and 2014?
Especially now that we know you can fucking the loophole of the centuries. You could like, all right, here, I can defer 98% of your salary and it won't go against a fucking luxury tax.
Dude, I can't believe that happened. That's crazy.
We're not a sports show. That's my 5th podcast. We'll get to that later. But IDW, we have Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees, issue 2. I read the best description of this. It is Dexter meets the Berenstain Bears.
Ooh,
yeah. I was like, oh, why the fuck didn't I think of that? So that comes out. Earth Divers issue 13. Dark Spaces Dungeon issue 2, which was the first issue that was excellent. Killmore issue 3, which is another excellent. I think that was killing it. Those are 3 fucking tremendous issues right there, or series right there. We have Star Trek Picard's Academy issue 3, Sonic the Hedgehog Winter Jam issue 1. You can get that, put that in your nephew's stocking.
Yeah, I gotta get it.
Adam's Family, Charlton's Web issue 1, and Godzilla Best of Gigan issue 1. Nicholas, what do we have from Vault?
Before I do the vault thing, you have
Oh,
dibs on Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees, correct?
yes.
Okay, I thought so. Okay, I
And
remember.
Kilmore.
Yes, and Kilmore, but like Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees very much stands out because of how much you raved about that
Yeah,
before,
yeah, yeah.
and I'm very excited. From your pitch primarily, like when you talked about the first issue.
That was a better pitch than anything I could have fucking said.
Well, I think you said the Berenstein Bears thing last time. I don't know about the Dexter thing, but either way, really cool. But one book that you didn't call dibs on that I'm stunned that you didn't call dibs on this, but I'm also grateful at the same time is Beyond Real issue 1. This is from Vault Comics, and it's written by Zach Kaplan with art by Fabiana Mascalo and Tony Fajula, with colors by Jordi Belair, which that is the least surprising bit of this whole title, because obviously Jordi Belair is one of the best colorists in the business, and the colors in this have to be absolutely batshit crazy, because all of the line work in this is absolutely batshit crazy in the best of ways. You talked about how this thing is heady in a good way. Could not agree with you more. This is such the art here is beautiful, like a wild visual journey. And it has an awesome story at the center of it. I know you talked about like the plot a little bit more last time, but my big thing here is like it's like got like a little bit of a Matrixy like vibe to it, and then there's like a romance at the center of it all as well. But beyond that too, those two characters, as much as we always see like two people like, in real life and in stories, you'll see like two opposites kind of fall in love, but you have basically a scientist and an artist fall in love. And I love, like, for me, I've just, I don't know. I think the conversations that I have at home, like it's just, as much as we're both like, editors in our own right, like we have the conversations about this kind of stuff, and I find it fascinating seeing it here and then experiencing it with the artist and all about her feelings. I very much related to that character, and just the way everything evolves throughout the course of the story is absolutely nuts. So this is a great example. Like, look, I'm not naive. I don't think either of us are naive to all the stuff that's going on in Twitter, unfortunately, in the comic space. And there's so much there. This is a great example of how crazy and awesome comics can be outside of superhero stories. And like, if people just, and again, looked at it as the medium, as opposed to like superheroes being like the medium or whatever, and like one and the same. That's not the case. Like there's a bunch of different stories. We talk about them all the fucking time on here, and Beyond Real is a great example of like what you can do outside of superhero stories. This is an amazing first issue, Joe.
Yeah, it was excellent. And I love the panels too, where there was just a lot of empty space. It was just a character sort of talking into the void, and it was sort of, lack of, it was just these white sort of backgrounds, right?
Yeah.
So everything about it was it was really fascinating to read, really engaging, and just great storytelling.
Yeah, moved at a good pace and was smart too, and that's not always like very smart. I felt like, and that's not things that are always together. Sometimes when you're trying to have a smarter book, you kind of got to slow things down a little bit. Not the case here. Moved at a very good pace. All right, let's get through some of these. What?
Also, I forgot, from Dark Horse, The Witcher Wild Animals 3 dropped.
Oh,
Or drops. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna I'm not gonna dive into it too far, other than this was the best issue of this particular series. Maybe one of the best issues that Bartosz Stibber has written for The Witcher. And the way this one ends, Nicholas, holy shit, absolutely jaw-dropping.
Wow, that's saying something for sure. I didn't get a chance to look at this yet, and this is up there on priorities for me to check out. That's saying a lot. Damn.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna fly us through this. You do have one more book that you want to dig into. We'll get that at the end here of what's new from Titan. We got Bloodborne, The Bleak Dominion issue 3, Life is Strange, Forget Me Not issue 1, Scarlet Couture, The Munich Files issue 5, Guma, The Beginning of Her, issue 1. I don't know what that is. Dynamite, Robert Jordan's The Wheel of Time, The Great Hunt, issue 2. A lot of colons in there. Alice Cooper, issue 3. Top Cow, we got Antarctica, issue 6, was the start of a new arc. Joe, you have dibs on that book. Siphon, excellent. Issue 2. From Oni Press, we got Invasive, issue 1, written by friend of the show, Cullen Bunn. From Mad Cave, we got The Devil That Wears My Face, issue 3, one of the best fucking books going right now. Horror fans, got to check it out. I have dibs on this one. Charred Remains, issue 1, is also out from Mad Cave this week, which is a book that I talked about when we got an advanced look at that a little while back. Really promising first issue. Can't wait to check out the second one. Then from Millar World, we got Millar World Origins Volume 1. Obviously, a lot of news with Mark Millar moving over to Dark Horse, which we've talked about at length. And then from AWA Studios, our friends over there, Joe, we got The Madness issue 5. How'd it go?
So I know that I had mentioned Kill Your Darlings, being on that short list for best new series of 2023. Yeah, so isn't this one. And even though this will conclude its next issue, which I don't think will come out until January, this has the potential to be my favorite AWA book of the year. Right. And that's saying something, because of all the books they put out has been absolutely excellent.
Yeah.
All for different reasons. But there's something about the revenge tour that our main character has been on. And I told you, like, the first issue, it was emotionally gut wrenching. And, what happens there sort of sets, hits that domino, and the events that take place afterwards, and how she is able to methodically, exact her revenge has just been so fucking good. Like I said, I can't remember. It was like the last time I talked about this book, at the time before, I was like, I've never wanted a book to end more, because I just need the ending. I want to be there so bad. Because I need to know how it ends. I have to, because everything about it, it's just been fantastic. So The Madness issue 5, like, this is a book, again, I know we don't try to tell people the trade weight, but like, it's it's at the end. So if you haven't been reading it when the trade comes out, you definitely want to pick it up and read it, because it's that fucking good.
So this isn't a question that comes up often with either of us, and I'm really curious in this instance because of how strongly you seem to feel about this series, and the fact that you also want to get to the end for good reasons. Does this book have rereadability for you? It's not something we talk about ever. Like, I'm not big on that. Do you feel like that has that potential for you?
So this is not like one of those books where, like, oh, I missed a bunch of, like, you don't realize you're missing the breadcrumbs until you've gotten to the end. And you go, oh, I got to go back and see if I can pick up the breadcrumbs.
Okay.
It's not that type of rereadability, but this is a story where, like, you buy the trade, it sits on your bookshelf, and maybe a year or two go by, and you say, oh fuck, I'd like to give that a read again. It's one of those things, right?
I see that. Yeah, because it sounds like it's a character that you want to spend more time with.
Well, yeah, I mean, because that's the thing. Like, this world, like, we're in this wonderful world that they've created, this really unique and just fucking violent and vicious world, right, that they've created, and there is a lot you can do with it, right? So like, this doesn't have to just be a one volume and done type of book, right? But this story is like so much focused just on this one character's revenge tour, and you feel like, when it concludes, so does really everything that goes along with it. But like any good thing, character can get their revenge, and then it's just like with John Wick. We didn't need 4 John Wick movies, but I'm glad that we have them. Right? You know what I mean?
Yep. 100%.
So like that, right? So if another volume never came out, I'd be bummed, but I'd be okay. This was, a great story. But there you could. But for like I said, rereadability, it's like, yeah, you go, how John Wick ends, but you're gonna go back and keep watching because it fucking kicks ass.
Yep.
That's the madness.
That's okay. Nice. Yeah, that sounds amazing. And if I'm not mistaken, it's time for us to get to the mainline portion of this conversation. And you're talking about an AWA book today, I think.
I am. It's been a little while since I talked about an AWA book. It's been a while since we just talked about books in general. I mean, Jesus, this might be the second trade we've done this year.
I'll double check that. Yeah,
which is wild. And the first one may have come early in the year, because you know what I mean. So, anyways, so this week, for issue 9, it's a big issue, Nicholas. Jesus, 90 mainline issues. Sins of the Salton Sea from AWA Studios, written by Ed Brisson, with art by C.P. Smith, letters by Hassan Othman Alao. And again, this is, I just talked about how the Madness, like, is one of my favorite books from AWA this year. This is another just really fucking excellent book, right? And it's like Axel said, it's like trying to pick your favorite breath of air or your favorite child, right? But quick synopsis of Sins of the Salton Sea. Wyatt, a professional thief living off the grid, is recruited by his brother for one last job. The target, an armored car traveling down a desolate stretch of California highway. It goes much longer than that, but I'm going to keep it there because I want to discuss the book here without just reading the entire synopsis there. So like that premise alone, like if they had just left the synopsis at that, that's enough really to have pulled me in. And really great premise, and you get that right off the bat, right? We talk about all the time with AWA, like their books have a certain feel, have a certain tone to them. Right. There's a grittiness, there's a rawness, some are darker in their color palettes than others, right? But that doesn't make them any less gritty or any less raw or any less violent. Right. This definitely is more of that darker, grittier kind of tone to it. And CP Smith does both the art, and the colors in this. And so like it's his vision and everything. And it works with Brisson's writing style so well. So this is a 5-issue series from it was written from, or it came out between June 2023. It just wrapped up just a couple months ago in October 2023 with the trade dropping in like late January. So more than enough time for you to listen to this episode, people, and then go tell your comic book shop to either order it for you or hold a copy for you, because you're gonna want to read it, plain and simple. But this starts off like the first issue. What you think you're getting, from the start to finish, you think you're just going to be getting a simple heist story, sort of as the synopsis described, but it becomes so much more. It's a cat and mouse. It's a thriller. It's a crime story. It's sci-fi. There's a lot of elements that come into play in this book, and where it starts and where it finishes just leaves you going, what the fuck? In the most excellent way possible. Just the journey you get, because it's like we're going, bang, swerve, holy shit. And sometimes that swerve hits, sometimes that swerve misses, because sometimes you get a story like, oh, I really love where it's going, and then you get that swerve, you go, it fucking kind of lost me. That seemed out of place. But this is, again, this is the type of book where there's breadcrumbs there, and upon a second reading you might pick up on some of it more, because the way that Brisson writes it, it's like he's sort of leading this trail. He's sort of leading you down the path. So when you get to the swerve, you're not like, well, that fucking came out of nowhere. It doesn't make any sense. Like it all fits and flows, so well. But like the violence in this book, and again, this is not a revenge tour type book, but it's sort of got that. It's got that body count of one, which is really good. And so this sort of like this, it revolves around the premise of sort of one last job. So whenever you get a story like, oh, one last job, it's it's not going to end well.
Yeah.
Period. Right. Like the movie Heat, right? One last job to kind of get out, and then just always shit goes awry. But this last job is a 5-man job. It's a cash job. You're going to get paid really well. Except so the gig is
what's their quote though? Is it $2 million?
$2 million. Yeah, that's the rate.
Even if they do a bad job on this, that's interesting.
Yeah. So the gig is you need 5 men, or it doesn't have to be 5 men, but you've got the employer, so to speak, and then you got his contact. He's like, okay, I'm going to need 5 guys. Anyways,
yep.
The gig is you get this large, each member of your crew, son of a bitch, I'm in, gets this large sum of money. You have to take out this van, but I get whatever's in this van. That's your job. No questions asked. I'll pay you. Boom. That's it. Not like, oh, there's a shit ton of gold bullion in there. You get to keep your share kind of thing. No, this is strictly
gold what?
Gold bullion, right? Or bullion, whatever it's called, right?
What the fuck?
Yeah, look it up. Old timey shit.
As the Geneva Convention, of course. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Right, but and so it seems easy enough, right? And so, but where the story gets really great is that it's in the characters, right? Like the overall plot and the premise goes from being one thing, changes to another, and then shifts to another. But all along, it's the characters that keep you invested, right? And it really drive the story. So this is a book that's, like I said, starts one way, ends one way. You won't see it coming. I mean, you kind of start to see it coming, and even though you expect what's going to happen, it's still, when it hits you, it's still like more than you could have ever possibly imagined.
I like some of that a lot.
So it was pretty intense, and the journey is intense as well. There's 3 characters that I'm going to talk about here. There's more characters in the book, obviously, but I really don't want to spoil too much. Even though like you get some characters at the end of the first issue, but I don't want to, go into it or who they are really, because of the roles they play. But anyways, so as the synopsis mentioned, you have Wyatt, who's your main I guess he's your main protagonist. You're rooting for the guy. He's not a good guy, right? Because he's an ex-con, he's an ex-thief. But you get right off the bat that he's out of the game, right? He does it. So every time I think I'm out, they pull me back in, right? He's out of the game. We don't know exactly why he's out of the game at the beginning, but you can tell something took a toll on him, right? Whatever happened to him was not great, Bob. Okay. And so he's out. But you're 100%, even though like he's a shady guy. Well, I wouldn't call him a shady guy, but like he's a fucking thief, right? So
slick back hair.
Slick back. Well, no, he's not that kind of bad guy.
Okay, all right.
But you know what I'm trying to say,
yes,
right?
He's
not. Yeah. But you're 100% rooting for him every step of the way. You want to see this guy come out the other end, right? And so like this layer of what happened to him in the past becomes very pivotable. I can't speak. I'm like,
I'm Ron Burgundy.
Right. Becomes very important to, the plot of the story and his motivations. Right. And so like, again, just great character writing, great storytelling. You have Jasper, who's Wyatt's brother. This is the guy who's running the heist, so to speak. Right. And he's also not a good guy. And you're not necessarily rooting for Jasper. Right. You're only kind of rooting for him because of what he means to Wyatt, and because you're so attached to Wyatt. But he's the one that sort of, sets up, the heist and what becomes the initial plot of the book. And one thing that stuck out with me in the first issue is like he's trying to convince his brother to get back into the game for this one last thing. And Wyatt's very reluctant to do so. And he's like, listen. He goes, we're both older, and he uses Ken Griffey Jr., right, as his way to sort of convince his brother, right, to do this. He goes, he goes, you remember Ken Griffey Jr., you remember his first season with the Reds? He signed that massive contract. He goes, in that first year of that season, he was still an MVP caliber player, but you could see the injuries were starting to take a toll on him, and he just was never the same player after that. He goes, that's us. We're not as fast as we were. We're not as strong as we were. We still got it, but time's running out for guys like us. And it's either, get out while you're ahead or die, right? Essentially. And that was a fucking great pitch. Like, I don't know. I thought that was actually, because I can picture it in my head. I know exactly where I was when Griffey signed with the Reds, after having such a prolific career with the Mariners, and just how he was never the same, after that.
Man, I knew I was going to like this book because I like Brisson, and I was pissed when you stole this one on me. But wow, like that's an amazing line.
It was a great little like couple of panels of just dialogue to kind of get through that. So like Jasper's story through this is also like, it's unique as well. And then you have Cecil, or Cecil, however you want to pronounce it. He's your main antagonist. This guy is a real piece of shit. But you also learn about his motivations, and as fucked up as they are, like there was a point where I'm like, I almost kind of said, but then nah, he's a fucking piece of shit. But he desperately needs and wants what's inside that armored van, and he will literally stop at nothing to get it. Literally stop at nothing to get it. And he's sort of this cult. You learn he's sort of this sort of cultish kind of figure. So what that cult really is, you kind of get bits and pieces of throughout the story, and then it all sort of culminates at the end, and which sort of gives lore to this sort of area of the country. I think it's in California, I believe. So like some really excellent stuff there. Again, Brisson's storytelling is absolutely brilliant. The pacing is fantastic. You get your action scenes, you get your emotional scenes, you kind of get your getting from here to there. Like everything about it is just so well executed, and the characters all have great motivations, which makes you either love them or hate them. And to me, that's what makes a really great story, is that you're invested. And then C.P. Smith's art, right? Like, again, there's this grittiness that has become sort of the staple of what AWA is about, and when I say grittiness, I don't necessarily mean like sketchy or, off the beaten path, right? Like they just have a great collection of artists that draw for them that can convey their stories really well, but you feel like you're in this sort of gritty crime world, right? And his color palette's great because he knows when to go bright with colors, he knows when to go dark with colors, and sort of also when to keep things kind of neutral. And sort of the last few pages of this series are just this fucking epic. There's an epic brightness to it, if that makes sense. That just like really encapsulates sort of what the story is all about. So like he knows how to make his panels pop. He knows how to make action sequences. And I just think that they're a really great pairing. So Sins of the Salton Sea, excellent. You can grab the trade towards the end of January. If you're able to either get them digitally or go to your local comic book shop and see if they've got past issues, I highly encourage not waiting until January and getting your hands on them and reading them. But Nicholas, this is a book I think you're going to thoroughly enjoy.
I feel like oddly satisfied after hearing your explanation of this, more so than usual. Like there's sometimes where I'm like fucking wired and can't wait to talk about a book, read a book that you've talked about. There are other times where I'm like, oh, this sounds interesting. I can't wait. I'm looking forward to digging into this. And this time around, I'm like, yeah, this is what I thought it was going to be in a lot of different ways and more. And also to put a pin put a bow on this, I should say. Sounds like this is a movie.
Oh yeah, hands down. This would be a great fucking action movie.
Yeah, that sounds great. Honestly, I'm like I will not be hesitating about as I'm generally not with AWA, but once this is out late in January, I'm going to be grabbing this thing for sure. All right, so for my book this week, we still have one more book to get to before the reveal of our trade, which I'm very excited to at least take a stab at what your book you're going to talk about for me. I got one more to share with you, the 90th one I've done, and after this, talking about 90th, we're going to be doing, when we get to mainline issue 100, that's kind of going to be like should be a compendium or an omnibus for us, right? I forget what we did for issue 50, but it should be.
I think it was an omnibus.
So then this would be compendium, right? Right?
I guess, yeah.
Maybe we'll find out. I don't know. We try and use words from the business, but we're not there yet. But we are coming up to the conclusion of this title, Firepower, by Robert Kirkman, with art by Chris Samney, colors by Matt Wilson, and letters by Russ Wooten, who I feel like always does Kirkman's letters. Maybe it's just me. I don't know. So this is a 30-issue series. The final issue of this series is coming out later in December, right before the new year. This also had a prologue OGN, and this is the way this title came out, I remember it very distinctly because it was like the first issue came out, but the second one did at the same time. And I feel like there was like a teaser first issue that came out beforehand, but also we got this prologue thing that came out early too. So I remember some of it, but it was like it seems like a lot went on with that, which did make for like a challenge. Like, how do I talk about this? Because on one hand, I feel like you can not read the prologue and read 1 through 30 and you're going to be okay. Or like, but also it's like, you're going to be like, it would lead to gathering valuable information. So I feel like you can if you want to forego the prologue, but honestly, if you like Firepower, like the first few issues, you're gonna want to read the prologue. Like it's pretty much a no-brainer.
Question is, if you didn't read the prologue, would you be confused?
No,
So
but
there's your answer.
there's a lot of information that you
so
won't
it
know.
enhances the story.
Yes,
but it's not required.
Yes, it's high. I would say highly recommended. So because and then again, like for me talking about it here, it does lead to some level of complication. But so like the first, I'll read the synopsis for the first issue. The one who wields the firepower is destined to save the world, but Owen Johnson has turned his back on that life. He doesn't want the power. He never did. He only wants to spend time with his family and live his life, but unseen forces are at work to make that impossible. Danger lurks around every corner as Owen's past comes back to haunt him. The prologue is basically how he got to be this being that can be like this figure that changes the fate of the world, and we get to meet some of the characters in that story, and some pop up in the main line, some again, of course, of the issues 1 through 30, some are spoken of often, but we don't necessarily see. But there are a lot of breadcrumbs that are left behind. That are left behind in the prologue. Like for me, I just, again, you can be fine and read 1 through 30, but I just don't think that's be in your best interest if you want to give this title a try. And honestly, when you do, whatever you pick up, you're gonna sit down and you're gonna read this whatever whether you do the first volume or the prologue volume. Technically, the prologue volume is listed as volume 1, for those wondering. So that might help a little bit. But you are gonna read this thing so fucking fast. This thing, so I bought the first volume ahead of, I think it was before, at some point before my honeymoon, and I brought it with me, one of the few like physical books that I brought with me just in case internet was an issue while I was away. And I read this thing so damn fast, and I couldn't find any other physical copies fucking anywhere. It was really frustrating. But we now have that new omnibus app that's out there, which I've been using to catch up on this. And dude, I'm telling you, I sit down and I read this in a fucking day. It's like without thinking twice about it. It moves so quickly. I don't know that one of the craziest things about the way Kirkman wrote this is I don't know where like the issue would have ended, because it's just like you finish, like you feel like, okay, maybe it's coming to an end, but then like you go into the next thing. Like it moves like the beats of this are crazy. And the tempo is just like consistent throughout, but like there's like there are moments where like you're kind of taking the characters will be taking stock of the situation, but then you get moving really fast. And the nature of this too, like this is a like a martial arts driven story, so it makes sense that things are going to be moving quick because a lot of these characters are agile and that's their fighting style. So it's very very appropriate. But it's like honestly, I could see somebody reading this whole series in a fucking week, because there's 30 issues to this. So like there's 5 volumes at this stage, because you have the prologue one. So we'll call that 36 issues. You could read 1 volume a day of this and you'll be done with it, and you'll be like very satisfied. The main character that we have here is Owen Johnson, who was mentioned in the synopsis. Then we get to meet his family in the course of the first issue and get to know them as the story goes along. You have his wife, Kelly, who is a police officer who knows about Owen's past in full, and has trained with him. So she has some experience, but not to the extent of like, certainly not on Owen's level, but she's a good fighter, like no question about it. Then you have their daughter, Haley, their firstborn child, then Doug, their second son. They have 2 kids, who eventually are going to learn what the fuck is going on and about their dad, who's like, seems to be this very mild-mannered individual. And he is like, he's still a calm dude, but he is a fucking force to be reckoned with. And then we have the guy who's going to be Joe's favorite character, and might quite honestly be my favorite character in this story, and that is Wei Lun. And he is the leader of the Order of the Flaming Fist. He is one of the masters of this order, which Owen meets fairly early, like right at the beginning of the prologue, pops up again later on in the story. He is this like he's this, been around for ages, master who knows everything, this great fighter, a bit of a wise ass, and will give you a ton of shit for any fucking reason. But then he has like all these weird little like idiosyncrasies about him. Like he always likes having headphones on him. I think if I'm not mistaken, like Owen gives him like like whatever music device Waylon had before he met Owen gives him like an upgraded version or something to that effect. So and then he wears like it might be like Nike Airs, but like shoes of that ilk. Apparently, Violet's not a fan of Waylon, but that's okay. We got Ma Guang, who is another member of the Order of the Flaming Fist, who gives Owen Johnson some shit when he first comes around. There are other people that we meet from the Order of the Flaming Fist, but I don't want to get into them because, again, like you were saying before, Joe, it's just especially when we have like the prologue, not like there are things that happen in the course of the prologue that just a lot like it's very like whatever you decide to do that is going to be very important for your experience, and I don't want to spoil those things. You do have Chen Zul, who is the leader of the Scorched Earth clan, and basically Order of the Flaming Fist, Scorched Earth clan don't really get along. Waylon, when we first meet him, or even when Owen first talks about it in the in the first arc, we learned that the Order of the Flaming Fist was protecting something from the Scorched Earth clan. That the Scorched Earth clan is, as we understand it, is trying to free release this thing to the masses. Is how things are delivered to us early on in the story. You learn about it at great length in the prologue. But those are the main characters. And again, I was careful about that. There are a few other key players that I'm not mentioning right now just because of things change from the prologue to the first issue. Like there's a big gap in time there. And what's so awesome is like about Kirkman's writing too, is he very much rewards you if you're reading the prologue, but at the same time, if you didn't read it, you're still going to be fine because there's a lot of breadcrumbs. There's a lot of stuff that's talked about that gets paid off later on. You get so like, he gets you so hyper focused on certain things on the task at hand, and there's so much going on with his family, the Johnson family, all the time that it's just like you can't think about anything else. So then you'll go on and you'll talk about these people or these developments, and it's just part of it's okay, that's a factor that's happened, whatever, and we move on to the next thing and the next thing, and then it's like, oh shit, that first thing we were talking about is now back and it's relevant again. And holy shit, I didn't see that coming. Great dialogue throughout all of this. The communication is great. And honestly, like this is something that Lauren and I talk about a lot, where when in story, whether it's I'm sorry, I like talking to my wife about stories. So whether it's comics, prose, movies, and shows, like when there's this element of like a miscommunication between people, sometimes it makes sense. Like it does obviously happen in real life, like a basic miscommunication, but there are a lot of times where it happens and it's a lazy fucking plot device. And one thing that I like about Kirkman, especially here, is he does not do that at all. Every time it seems like, oh, this is a thing that like in like most stories, it could pop up and be like this issue that leads to like, the evolving of the plot and whatever. It's like, no, it gets addressed. And it's not like it's a thing that it's like almost like a plot device in the sense that it'll throw you off the scent of what's really going on. So I like that. And then of course, art is rock solid in this. The ninja sequences, there are so many cool ones, and it again plays into the fluidity of the writing of this story. Like Samney does an outstanding job. Both giving us some cool shit to look at, but also with his storytelling and having that like the plot reflected in not only like the way his characters act, but also in the way the story moves.
Nice. Sorry, there's a lot of movement behind me. That sounds fantastic. And I was gonna make it was like a West Side Story joke, so, sharks and jets, they don't like each other, but no, I mean. This sounds absolutely fantastic. And so for those, this is not going to play well for the people listening, but for those watching, Nick's background is from the cover of the first issue. Is that the same artist? Is that Chris Samney?
Yeah.
So that art's fantastic. So if that's the art in the book, man, like That sounds absolutely fantastic. And it's a little Shang-Chi-ish, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that is if that's appropriate or not, but
yeah, that
yeah.
and like I will say too, this is a book that I remember when it came out. Like I said at the start of this conversation, I was like, I looked at it, and I was like, okay, I don't know. Like that's also kind of why I'm encouraging people to check out the prologue, because I read the first issue, I was like, oh, maybe I just wasn't in the right frame of mind. It did come out in 2020. There was a fuck ton of shit going on. It was right before we started the show, or maybe right around that. And I was just like, I don't know, something about it didn't hit me right. And then when I went and read this prologue, I was like, whoa,
Okay.
this is fucking good. And this reads really, really fucking fast. Like, so again, I want to leave it up for the decision of the readers, but for you, Joe, read the prologue. Don't think about it twice.
Yeah, I wouldn't think twice about it. That sounds fantastic. So
yes,
Nicholas,
it's time.
with that said, it's time. The big reveal. So I've written down 3 books that I think you are going to do, but I will go first. I want to know, Nicholas, what title do you think I will be of yours that you've read that I will be discussing today?
Okay, I have 2 choices here. And again, I felt good about it originally because you teased me with the idea that like you had to dig, that you dug. You said digging, but I felt like it was like
I went deep into the bowels of TLDR history.
When we talked about it, maybe it was off air or whatever, but it just sounded like it was a book that you like had a lot to read. So maybe that's what threw me off the scent. So one is the Magic Order. And then the other one that I feel better about is Barbaric.
Okay. So the tag team, or not necessarily the tag team, but the writer and the letterer is going to sound awfully familiar because Nicholas just discussed a book written by one Robert Kirkman and lettered by one Russ Wooten.
Look at
I went with Invincible.
I went
with Invincible. So this is a book that I am ashamed to admit that it took me so long to read. I mean, I've enjoyed the show. And so this is I picked this book for a couple of reasons. One, I wanted to read it. 2, the second season of the show on Amazon just came out and I absolutely fucking love it. But 3, I love having this discussion of adaptations, right? Of comic books to whether it be movies or TV shows. Now, I've been dropping hints for the last few episodes, Nicholas, that I was doing this book that you just didn't pick up. One,
really?
There's a ton of episodes. There's a ton of issues in this series. 100 and hold on, I got the notes right here. There's 144 issues. So before I dive to it, Invincible from Skybound, written by Robert Kirkman. A couple different artists throughout this 144 issue run. We have Corey Walker, Ryan Otley, who I enjoy very much, Cliff Rathburn, with colors by Bill Crabtree and letters by Russ Wooten. Synopsis: Mark Grayson is a teenager whose father is a superhero. He'd fancy being one himself, but he hasn't got any superpowers. Then one day he gets them, and so his superhero career begins. Now he has to balance his life between school, girl troubles, and fighting against bad guys and gals. And this ran from January 2003 to February 2018, and there's a number of trades and omnibuy. And so, 1, I love the show, as I just mentioned, and 2, like, so I talked about, I've been balls deep into the series that I'm discussing, 144 issues. I just downloaded the first omnibus and just started reading, man.
Nice.
So that was the first giveaway, and then either last week or the week before, I asked, how is the show Invincible and the comic book? Because we talked about it, like, especially because, like, my biggest thing with Sweet Tooth is I love the comic book, and I hate to be that guy, but the show just doesn't come close because they change the tone and the tenor and the characters from one to the other. And I've heard Lemire, I read Lemire in interviews discuss why that is, and I get it, but like, that's not why I fell in love with the series, right? Like, I wanted to see that. Now, I get when you adapt things, you've got to make changes, and that's okay. But if you're completely changing the heart of the story, or you're changing just fundamentally what the characters are, that's where I have a problem. Whereas with Invincible, right, there are a lot of changes, but they don't fundamentally change who the characters are. They don't fundamentally change the overall story. It's making tweaks here, making tweaks there. Like this guy, he meets a certain fate, and then this is how he comes back in the comic, but this is how he's presented in the show. And that doesn't take away, because the overall premise for that character is still to kind of be a consultant, right? Like Mark's mom is two completely different characters.
Yeah.
But the story isn't about Mark's mom, right? Like you're in both the comic and the show, there is an investment in his mom, but it doesn't, like, the fact that they changed that doesn't take away from me, because it doesn't change the overall story. The story is Mark, being that sort of Peter Parker type character who gets these powers, who's still in high school, and he's dealing with teenage high school problems while still carrying the weight of the world literally on his shoulders as he's trying to save it, protective. And then you throw on these massive daddy issues on top of it, right? Like Omni-Man, it's not like they fundamentally changed who Omni-Man was, or who Mark was, or what his motivations are, or what Omni-Man's motivations are, or Adam Eves, or like any of these side characters that we meet. It's about Mark going face to face, not just with his father, but also his heritage and his his alliances. He was born on Earth. His allegiance is to Earth, right? It's not to is it Vitrin? What's the
Viltrum.
The Viltrum? Thank you. Right. So he's got to wrestle with that, and then you still have these great cast of side characters that are roughly the same. So like the changes they made in the sequence of events, like it's 144 issues. You can't expect them. Same thing with The Walking Dead. When something is so long like that, you can't just do it verbatim. You've got to move it along for pacing's sake for television, right? And so I don't care that they took these things there's things that's happened in the show that I still haven't gotten to yet in the comic,
right?
And that's okay, right? It doesn't spoil it for, like, if you're one of these people that wants to read the comic first before you watch the show, then yeah, start reading, right? But like I watched the show first and then read the comic, and even though I'm only a fraction of the way through, I still really enjoy the comic, because there's a lot of stuff that happens in the comic that hasn't either happened in the show yet, or maybe won't ever happen in the show. That's still really great. And like where they are in season 2, I imagine some of that stuff is well down the line from where I'm at. So I get to read all of this great, like, satiate my invincible, thirst, if you will, by reading the book. And like, okay, I haven't gotten there yet where the show is. So there's a lot of really great stuff that fills in the gaps there. So like, I don't know how you feel about season. I absolutely love season 1.
Yep.
I love season 2. I hate that there's a big pause, right? Because we already had to wait so long for season 2, and there's a pause between the second half of the season. I'd rather they have taken more time before they released the season and just done it all.
Yeah,
right.
I agree.
But that's just me, being an old man saying, yeah, I want my money and I want it now.
Yeah, I mean, but I I think that doesn't happen sometimes, but I disagree. Like, it's a reasonable, like, complaint this time. It's like, well, just finish it off for us. Like, why are we having, like, delay? Fine, okay, that's going to happen, but just get it done and give it to us in full, in its totality, please. That's pretty much my only gripe with the second season. The second half, the first half of the second season was great. I'm so glad that you finally checked this out. It's fucking great, dude, and it's another one that you just can fly through reading it too.
Yeah,
it's really. You see what I mean with the differences in how he, like, some of the dialogue too. Like, there's a lot of, like, stuff that gets addressed and talked about still, like, throughout the show. But there's, like, things where, like, Kirkman will, like, devote like a whole page or a couple pages to, like, a conversation that's like, you're really getting in the fucking weeds here, aren't we?
Yeah, right. Yeah. And 144 issues, right? Like, it obviously didn't, like, hinder the book at all, because the book doesn't survive that long, right? But that's the kind of stuff, like, those are decisions you have to make, because you can't have episodes like that, because then people go, oh, is this a filler episode? Is this a bridge episode? Like, that's what's made it, like, there's so much material here that you can cut out some of that stuff and not have it really affect the story, but you're still getting, a really well-paced action show. And it doesn't it's not like it bogs the comic down either. Right?
No,
Because
it's
you're
just
just so
no.
invested.
I like it.
Right.
It's just interesting. Like that was a
Yeah.
big difference that I noticed.
Yeah. So this is a great example of adapting something from one medium to another, having to make some changes and or cuts, and it's still being executed extremely well.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
I'm glad you liked it. I'm glad you liked
Yeah.
it. And that is a deep fucking cut for this show. All right. So now it's my turn.
Okay.
What book what are your guesses for me? You got 2 or 3?
I've got three. I've got three.
I want to hear them all before Nightclub, okay.
Nightclub from Mark Millar, Absolution from
Okay.
AWA Studios,
Mhm.
and then Local Man from Tim Seeley and Tony Fleeks. Those are my three guesses.
You got it right on one of them. You
Yeah.
did.
Local
Yes.
Man.
Yep,
Yeah.
100% it was Local Man. I've said it.
Yeah.
So there are a few other books that Joe has recommended that and vice versa that that I've talked about on here or he's talked about on here that I've recommended previously. And obviously we don't want to dig into those books more here in these conversations because like you guys already know we fucking read that book. We don't want to beat it over beat a dead horse or anything like that more than we already do. So I'm ignoring like World Tree. I read that right away and I talked about it in the course of our horror conversation because it was somewhat relevant. Same with That Texas Blood because Keith had it on his top 10 horror comics of all time. Fucking love that series, but I didn't I don't view that as a horror as much as he made an interesting case for it. But Local Man, yes, Tim Seeley and Tony Fleeks, man. It's so fucking good. I was so right to have FOMO about this series while you were over fucking enjoying this thing every goddamn month. It's so good. Crossjack's story is outstanding. And honestly, everything about it is great. But what really is like the nice icing on the cake is the throwback stuff we get at the end of every issue, which I believe that's Seeley, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, Seeley's the one who's drawing like the 3rd gen art. And it's you get like this throwback of the story of this character who's kind of like crestfallen or whatever. But God, some of the but it sounds like he wasn't really like that fucked up, just like a little bit of an asshole. But even then, he was like kind of. You find out because I'm only at the end of the first arc. I haven't gotten to the.
You got to catch up. You got to catch up the second arc.
I will. I don't. I gotta find the 6th issue, but I fucking like it's. You get to the. I think it's the end of the 4th issue, and it's like. You're led to believe it's one thing, and then it's like, okay, well, it was kind of, presented to him, and, is he really, like, that's not a great thing, and I can understand why he got the boot, but, like, everybody's fucking hating him for that? Like, that's why Crossjack is shit on so much? And then you get to the 4th issue, and it's like, wait, what was that? Like, I don't, like, he doesn't deserve any of this shit that he's fucking getting. It's fucking bananas. I cannot believe it. It was such a like 4th issue, man. It was a wild development. But you don't need to get to the 4th issue to fall in love with this series. Obviously, I fell in love with it with the 1st issue, and I fell in love with it before we got those extra pages of like the flashback stuff at the end of the issue. I actually didn't know when I read the credits and it was like, oh, Tim Seeley did the 3rd gen art. I'm like, okay, what is that? What is that? Is that going to be like? So there's 2 stories. I get it. We got 2 writer artists working here and everything, or 2 cartoonists. I guess is a technical term, but what is that? And I never see that flashback once we get to, I don't see it in the course of the story. So I'm like, maybe I just missed it and they have some more similar art styles than I realized. Then we get that added on at the end. It's like, wow, this is even better. So I loved it before that. Then you add that to the mix and I'm like, this is fucking great. I know you mentioned it, but I forgot it. But then again, like the 4th issue is like the ultimate jaw dropper in this whole fucking series. It was,
well,
God.
the end too, like the way it ended, right? Like
the end of the arc is outstanding. Don't get the end of the end of the arc is outstanding. But like and again, obviously, everybody, I don't want to spoil it for you guys, but the 4th issue is
now
everything's been so far. Then you get to the 4th issue, and it's like, I've never been so like, there's few times when I've read shit and I've been like, wow, pardon? What? Did I see that right? What the fuck? So good, dude.
Let me see. Local man. Okay, so when did this first drop? When was the first issue?
The first issue came out in February of this year.
Yeah, right. So like, yeah, you got to think about it. You gotta think about it. Right. We can see this again. This was such a good
That's true.
first
Yep,
arc.
100%.
But even the start of the second arc, man, has been like where the story has gone from where that one ends. Like, it's a continuation, but like not you're now fully immersed into this world, right? And so like it's been so fucking good. And I think I talked about it in the last issue with the art. There was a sequence of panels where he's absolutely tripping balls. And what's the police the detective's wife there, who's like his prior love interest?
Oh, it begins with an I.
She's the baker, Inez, right?
Yeah,
Inez,
no, it's like oh shoot, give me a second. Go
whatever.
ahead.
But anyways, she sends him a picture of a donut that she made, and
Inga.
he's Inga, thank you. And he's so whacked out on drugs that he thinks that like she sent him a picture of her butthole. And so he like so then he's like, oh, and then so the next panel is him like standing, butt ass naked, takes a picture, and he's it was just like the greatest sequence of panels that I could ever think of in a comic book. Right. Just it's because it's so fucking funny because he's been tripping balls up until that point. And then like just the express I don't want to oversell it or ruin it for you. It's just absolutely fantastic.
No, so to add on to this too, so like obviously we've said a lot, but there's like a few of these single issues have covers. I mean, quotes from creators across the industry. I saw comicbook.com get cited on in issue 2. The one that kind of stands out to most to me is from Pornsak Pichotti, who we've talked about with the Good Asian. Might be the most brilliant concept since Stray Dogs, which of course Tony Fleecher is one of the creators on that series. Using 90s comics nostalgia to tell a midlife crisis story. Utter genius. Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. Summed up perfectly there.
Perfect description. Absolutely. Yeah, this is
series.
This because I think the first trade is out. This will make a great gift for the comic book fan in your life. And but it's just so fucking good. I'm so glad you read it. I had a feeling this was going to be because I was scrolling through the list, and so like okay, Absolution. That's a book I love from AWA. I'm talking about an AWA book today. He might do that.
I laid it out pretty thick.
But the two I was like, okay, I'm like these are the two I know he's definitely be talking about. It was either going to be Nightclub, or was going to be Local Man, and I go, yeah, it's Local Man. No, he's been dying to read that book for so long. It's hands down going to be that one.
It's so good. And the only other book that I would have done before that would have been World Tree, but obviously, like I've talked about it on here.
I ruled out World Tree, and I ruled out that Texas Blood because of
wouldn't do
Halloween issue.
100%. Nope, absolutely would not. Yeah, like you wouldn't do Where Monsters Lie because but you just read it. We talked about it with Kyle Starks when we had him on, and I know you love that series too.
Yeah.
A book that Joe found out the fucking hard way. You can't read that at night.
No, God,
that
no.
Clown with the flamethrower. When you sent me that, I was like, oh, yeah, maybe I should have warned him a little bit.
Yeah. And also, I got to say, my batting average for picking your books is a lot better than yours.
Yeah.
You're picking mine. I'm like Ted Williams over here, and you're like fucking Tyler, whatever that dipshit is they just signed. That's
generous. I wouldn't even call myself Tyler O'Neill. I'm probably more like Mike Lansing. For being real
Mike Lansing, that fucking.
I think I'm hitting like seriously. I don't know if I've gotten. I think I've gotten one right.
You above the Mendoza line?
I don't think so, man. This is why I was a pitcher.
Yeah.
Anyways, all right. So that is going to do it for us this week. Again, reminders, if you're watching us on any of our streams, make sure you subscribe on our audio channels because that's the only place you're going to get Friar Side Chats. You never know when they're going to pop up. And if you subscribe to the audio channels, you won't have to know when they're going to pop up because they'll go right to your listening device when they do, because we always post those on midnights. The day, sometimes those fluctuate. But anyways, make sure you leave a 5-star rating and review if you listen to us on Apple. Otherwise, you're going to learn the real meaning of Backcracker. Anywhere else, please leave the highest rating that you can and do leave a review. Helps the show out a ton. And please tell a fellow comic book reader too. This is all about, the love of the medium. And we hope that we're trying to give you guys everything that we would want in a podcast. And that's why Joe and I have so much fucking fun, even though we got to talk to each other every goddamn week. But
right.
Joe, until next week, stay sexy.
Yeah, man, I gotta tell you, I don't know how much longer you stay married. I gotta look at this face every week. Lauren's gotta look every day.